good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Now, this morning we are speaking with author and creator Aloma Woods. Good morning and welcome. And we also have her colleague who is online that's going to be joining us, Mr. Quincy Joseph, who is a youth leader. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, Shenell. I am Karen Bart-Alexander from Tobago CivilNet.
Oh, sorry about that. We have another interview scheduled for this slot, so that's my bad. So yeah, we do have CivilNet talking about the turning of the tide of crime this morning. So we want to welcome you so much to this conversation. After you, we're going to be talking a bit about education.
Okay.
So this morning we are talking about all that CivilNet has been doing to be a part of that fight against crime on the island. Now, we've seen a huge surge in crime this year, particularly in Tobago, and we see a lot of press conferences happening when something happens. But there needs to be an ongoing conversation. There needs to be ongoing action on all that has to be done to fight crime. And it's not just a governmental fight. It's a fight that has to be taken to the streets, as a lot of persons say. It's a fight that everyone has to be a part of. And so the Tobago CivilNet has taken that thrust towards being a part of that fight with this series, a 4-week series that you're having called Turning of the Tide of Crime and Violence. Talk to us a bit about that.
Yes, Shenell. Actually, we have been looking at the fact that a lot of our efforts at crime fighting are efforts that are done after the fact. And crime is a preventable disease. And because it's a preventable disease and because it affects the health of the public, we are aware that persons are very much affected by crime physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and spiritually as well. So it is very, very much a public health issue. And it being a public health issue, we found out that crime is best approached from a public health perspective. And that public health perspective helps us to do it in a way that is not scattershot, in a very methodological way, in a very systematic way, and so on. So since 2008, we tried, that's a group called the GAIAP Violence Prevention, Peace and Love Movement. We tried to introduce that public health approach to Trinidad and Tobago. For that purpose, we had a session with Professor Ulrich Johnson, and it was called Gang and School Violence Analysis and Solutions. Then in 2009, we did Why Kids Are Failing, Ailing, and Misbehaving, a fresh perspective on joyful learning, and the presenter was Camille Swap. Then 2010, I think it was, we did Ready to Learn, Ready to Win with Dr. David L. Kind, and that was in collaboration with Camille Swap and Associates. And in 2011, we had a workshop on parents, why gangs protect your children. And in all of these interventions, the public health approach was promoted as an area, a methodology that can be used by Trinidad and Tobago to deter crime, because Professor Johnson had let us know that in Boston, they were able to get a 4-year hiatus from murder when they introduced the public health approach. But having dropped the ball after a time, things kind of deteriorated again. So we saw where it works, and it works well. And as a result of that, Tobago CivilNet has decided, let us try to introduce this approach to the Tobago space. And we are doing that with a 4-part symposium. We first wanted to bring in Dr. Johnson. We wanted to have an all-day symposium where we bring in all the stakeholders and devise an action plan for implementation. But unfortunately, we were not supported in that move. The Division of Health and Wellness had indicated their support at first and then they withdrew. We still don't know why. But nevertheless, we have decided to go ahead and, we sort of reorganized it to suit our pockets and our budget. And the Eastern Credit Union, they were very, very good to us. And they gave us a grant, a small grant, and we were able to put it together with our little funds that we have in Tobago CivilNet and change the format. So we now have a 4-part symposium in which we will have 4 presenters. The first one is Quincy Joseph. May God rest Quincy Jones' soul. The first one is Quincy Joseph, and Quincy is going to have a discussion in which he is going to speak with an host on crime and taxation. Is gang violence worth the price? And he is going to go into the fact that crime pays, but the outcome is much more than the income.
Right.
The expense related to the outcome is much higher than the income, and therefore it is not profitable. So he is going to have a conversation that shows the youth that crime does not pay, really. It's not profitable. It does not make sense, and so on. So we are hoping that is going to take place on the 12th. That is going to take place on the 12th of November, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, from 6 p.m. And it is virtual. So persons can log in via Facebook, Tobago CivilNet Facebook page, or they can also register on that page if they want to have the Zoom link. So that's tomorrow. Then the following Tuesday, we have Dr. David Mohammed. And Dr. David Mohammed is well known as a sociologist and activist. His whole thesis, his doctorate has been around youth and violence and so on, and deviance and all of that. And he is going to be speaking on the untold truth about society's failure to develop our youth. So that too promises to be very interesting because Dr. Mohammed, he has a very interesting intellect. He has a unique intellect, and he sees things that many people do not see, and therefore he is going to be sharing with us the similarities, the differences between crime in Tobago and crime in Trinidad, where they cut each other, and the external influences on both. So that is going to be a very, very interesting conversation as well. It is taking place from 6 to 8 p.m. next Tuesday, that is Tuesday the 19th of November. And that is going to be followed by Camille Swap. And Camille has a very interesting take on the education system and joyful learning and why it's important for our youth and why its absence in the system and the absence of us using the education system to tailor learning to the development of the child, the age and stage of development. What we do in our education system is that we teach people how to pass exams, but we do not tailor the education to the development level of the child. And she has been pointing out to us how important it is to know the developmental stages and to deal with education, relate education to the development stage of the child. So her topic is going to be Joyful learning as an antidote to failing, ailing, and misbehaving among the youth. So she is presenting joyful learning as one of the answers, and learning from a developmental perspective as one of the answers to the failures and misbehaviors that we are seeing among the young people. And finally, on the fourth occasion, which is December 3rd, from 6 to 8 again, we have Professor Ulrich Johnson. Now, he is going to speak on the public health approach to crime and violence. And he is very, very, very interested. Do not miss Dr. Ulrich Johnson, because he's a Trinidadian, first of all, a Trinidadian and Tobagonian, and he failed common entrance. But he went abroad just after. They discovered that one of his problems was that he was not seeing properly.
Right.
And Dr. Johnson became Professor Ulrich Johnson, Professor Emeritus now, because he's retired. But he was the Dean of Human Services at the Boston University and all of that. A very successful man and very, very qualified in several areas. And he is the one who is going to help us through to understand the public health approach to crime and violence, how it works, how we apply it, and so on. So we are very interested in seeing a lot of various stakeholders log into our session. The police, the law enforcement people, the judiciary, the teachers, the parents, the community leaders. We want to see everybody participate, and if the criminals, people involved in crime, it will be very good for them to be able to listen and understand where they are at, what has happened to them, how they got to where they are, how they will get out of where they are, where it is they can go next.
Right.
And all
and you
of that.
indicated that you would have engaged the Division of Health. However, they are no longer one of your sponsors, but are they, as well as the Division of Community Development, engaged to be a part of these discussions?
Yes, we have sent invitations to them because we want them to be part of it. Because you see, dealing with crime and violence as preventable diseases has to be an all of society approach. So it is not just the government. Of course, all the agencies of government can be involved and are supposed to be involved, but also the communities, the community leaders, all the village councils and the counselors and the people who deal with the school counseling and so on, the guidance officers at the schools, and so we would like to really reach everyone. And the thing about reaching everyone is that when the government fails and falls down, in the sense that they do not take up the ball and run with it, we the people are the ones who should be able to put some pressure on them and say, this works, try it. We want to see this happen. And so we want everybody, the general public, and if it is possible that people can, gather groups together and have a screen, a TV screen or whatever, and bring in, have a group look at the program, that is going to be good, and they can discuss it together and so on.
Excellent. Now we're going to take a quick break right here, and we're going to be back as we continue our discussions on this Turning the Tide series hosted by the Tobago CivilNet, focused on crime and violence in Tobago, a public health approach. Guys, we take a break right here and we see you soon. We have been talking about the Turning the Tide series to combat crime and violence being held by the Tobago CivilNet. I'm happy to say we now have our youth leader, Mr. Quincy Joseph, joining us online along with Mrs. Karen Bart-Alexander here in studio. Good morning, Quincy, and welcome. Now, you are a part of this series and you have chosen to share your experience and your proposed solution and recommendations for young persons who are in that lifestyle, as well as the policymakers, on more positive and effective approaches to dealing with crime. You in your presentation are focusing on the fact that though crime may pay, it really isn't worth the cost. So tell us a bit about that.
Right. So good morning to Tobago. Good morning to Trinidad. If we have viewers watching. Good morning, Karen. We got
Morning.
Luke. I don't know if Luke's around. Tobago updates. So yes, Quincy Joseph, and again, we often try to discourage people from doing stuff with myths, and then when people discover that these myths are not, factual, then our whole case falls through. So to tell a youth that crime doesn't pay, when he lives 2-3 houses from the block and he sees the drug dealers in the Benz on a Tuesday and the Tita on a Thursday and then the Hilux on a Sunday with, a Spanish on a Wednesday and a darky on a Friday. And, he is glorified, he's respected, he's revered. The things that us young males align with manhood is really, defeating the purpose. Crime does pay. There wouldn't be so much criminals. There wouldn't be a recurring, crime issues if crime doesn't pay. But you see them taxes, because I had to pay some of them taxes. You see losing loved ones. You see getting a call that your father passed and you're locked up with a 104-year sentence and there's no way possible you could attend the funeral. Seeing your mom get gray and old in front of your eyes, things that money cannot buy, your freedom, imagine you as a youth consider yourself a toppy and a little scrawny, little nashy somebody telling you, hey, time to go in your cell. So crime does pay, but the taxes, everything in life has taxes, and in the 9-to-5, they know sometimes you work that overtime. And you think, well, yeah, you get through because you clock an extra double shift on a Sunday and you get time and a half into double, into triple. But when that tax man finish with you, it's better to just make a regular 40 hours. So, I deal with harsh realities. I deal with a lot of truths, a lot of, I try to ignore the elephant. We don't ignore the elephant in the room, sorry. And sometimes it is offended, but sometimes you got to hurt people's feelings to save their lives,
Right. And so you are primarily targeting persons who are involved in that life, as well as the policymakers, for more effective means of helping persons to stay clear of crime and gang violence. And for you, what do you think is one of the core elements that often go overlooked when trying to steer young persons away from that lifestyle?
I think one of the core elements we overlook is that times have changed and the youth nowadays are not us or our grandmothers, They have more information. We live in the information age. So you cannot use the boogeyman stories so that's one of the things, dealing with truth, being able to put your finger on the pulse, and the intellectuals, the lawmakers, the policymakers must give credit and must give respect and make a space, a real space, not a space just for optics, but a real space for the grassroots. It must really reflect together we aspire. So the intellectual, the lawmakers, the policymakers, the government, the ministers, they have to give a serious consideration to the views and to the experiences of guys and gals, as we say, like myself, people who still in the mud, people who still connected, because the reality is you would be out of touch. Now, if you tell a minister or a policymaker they're out of touch, they would take it as disrespectful. No. When last you come in the ghetto, when last you go down in Buku or in Plymouth or Charlottesville, big up the man them in Castara. When last you really go and sit down amongst them, cameras off, not no campaign, not just sit down and vibes with them, sit with them. Give them a listening ear, not a hearing ear, but a listening ear. So you need the people on the ground, just like the people on the ground need the people up top. A plane need wings to fly, but it also need wheels to land.
Shenell, I would like to add here that one of the things that we overlook with gang violence is the fact that gang violence is a symptom. It's not a cause. One of the causes of gang violence is the fact that people love to get together in groups. We are a social people. We are a people who understand that you do better in a group. But what kind of group? The young people want to belong to something. They want to feel validated. They want to feel recognized. And for many of them, saying, I'm a gangster, is what gives them some kind of feeling of belonging, or some kind of feeling of recognition and validation. And we have to understand that. So it is not something that we could look at on the surface. We have to look at the fact that we have all kinds of gangs in the society. Some are good and some are bad. But the bottom line is that people want to belong. They want to have a sense of belonging, a sense of being a part of something, a sense of being validated as being somebody. And who am I if I feel that I am nothing and no one? And for many people, being a gangster is what gives them a sense of validation.
Right. So Tobago CivilNet would be hosting this 4-week series, and it starts from tomorrow, Tuesday the 12th at 6 p.m. and it's online, and you can go to the Tobago CivilNet page and you can collect the link there and be prompt, be a part of that. But the discussion would also be live on your
the Facebook page.
Right. So you just visit the Tobago CivilNet on Facebook, and you can be a part of that. Now, if you have questions and you want to join, you can also add those questions to the Facebook page. And I have the privilege of hosting a couple of these discussions, so I look forward to being a part of that as well, because we now are seeing crime and violence here as a public health crisis that needs to be dealt with from an administrative level. But as I said in my introduction, it's not just something where the government has to fight crime. We need all hands on deck. We need the guys on the street. We need parents on deck. We need teachers on deck.
That's right.
We need the media on deck.
That's
we
right.
need all hands
Community
on deck.
leaders, everybody. And this is what the public health approach does. It helps you to determine what are the risk factors within all of these contexts, whether it is parenting, whether it is in the community, whether it is in the schools, whether it is in law enforcement, and all of those areas. So it is a very comprehensive approach.
Right. And Quincy, what would you like to see coming out of this entire series?
Well, I have been doing some work in Tobago for the last 2.5 to 3 years with my organization. And I know that Tobago is ripe for problems, but I know it is also ripe for solutions, because I've heard that the person closest to the problem is also the person closest to the solution. So I'd like to encourage people who I know have been working hard in Tobago, people like Ms. Ria Moore and the Charlottesville Police Youth Club. You have people like Ms. Laverne Simon, you have Mr. Niall George, who I've had conversations with. You have, I met Mr. Sonny Craig, I believe, in Buku. I would ask all the youth leaders, all the community, all the patriots. You see what I have on this morning here? All the patriots of Tobago, because we're dealing with Tobago specifically. Reach out to the youth, the school teachers, reach out to your children, reach out to your community organization, reach out to your youth league, and tell them you're popping some popcorn tomorrow. And all you're meeting somewhere and you're all having an educational line, a fun line, a line to preserve not just the integrity, but the economic sustainability of the island, because crime runs away business. Even to the ghetto youth and them, you cannot make money and war at the same time. The only person who benefits is the man who does build caskets, the man who does rent tents and tables and chairs for your wake, and these type of things. So I would like, before we talk about what I'd like to see coming out of it, this is what I would like to see going into it, where Tobago stands up with the Tobago CivilNet and encourage the youths. Let the youths them see that the elders, regardless of community, ethnicity, race, political affiliations, regardless whether you're tall, you're short, crime affects every single person. Big up Buku one time this morning, and my whole family them.
Excellent, excellent.
And
All
I
right.
would like to big up Rodney Piggott, who is our chairman and who leads CivilNet, in a very structured and professional manner, so that, CivilNet is able to accomplish quite a lot as a very young organization. We have a telephone number that can be called, or it's WhatsApped for information, 732-7630. That's 732-7630.
And so persons can call if they would like to contact the organizations. Guys,
Yes.
we're going to take a quick break right here. We're going to return with much more conversation right after this. Again, thank you to CivilNet and see you soon.